Started. I think you are already got it. I think you're already following. Everyone is here. We just wanted to make sure we got that message. So I'm going to go ahead and call Marks versus Sunny's Rooftop Bar. Again, my name is Judge Angela Minor, the scoring judges. Let me speak to our scoring judges really quick. Please look to the two buttons on the lower left of your screen and turn off your audio and video. These should remain off until the trial ends. You should also have your video set to hide all non-video participants. This means the only people on the screen right now should be the advocates and myself. I do see plaintiff Grant and I see defense attorney Durrani. Did I pronounce your names correctly?
Yes, Your Honor.
Yes, Your Honor.
All right, I believe we'll go ahead with court appearances, and court is in session.
Appearances from the plaintiff, Your Honor.
Certainly.
Good morning, Your Honor. My name is Elizabeth Grant. Today I'm representing the estate of Jessica Marks, and I'm joined today by my co-counsel, Aisha Pasha.
Thank you, counsel.
Good morning, Your Honor.
Good morning.
And Your Honor, after opposing counsel introduces themselves, we do have a few housekeeping matters we'd like to go through with the court.
Certainly.
Good morning, Your Honor. My name is Rahima Durrani, and along with my co-counsel, James Orr.
Good morning, Your Honor.
Good morning, Mr. Orr.
We represent the defendant, Sunny's Rooftop Bar. And we're also joined today by that business's owner, Mr. Sunny Mehta.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Housekeeping from the plaintiff, Your Honor.
Yes, you may proceed.
First, we'd like to draw the court's attention to pretrial ruling 11, which states that Exhibit 22 is already admitted in today's case.
The autopsy so noted. Thank you, counsel.
Next, Your Honor, we'd like to draw the court's attention to another part of the pretrial order, which states that neither party today may amend its pleadings at trial. And Your Honor, we'd like the court to note that before today's trial, opposing counsel raised an affirmative defense, which means they're required today to prove that Ms. Marks contributed to her own death through negligence.
Thank you, counsel Grant. Any other matters? Oh,
yes, Your Honor. My apologies for interrupting.
No problem.
Your Honor, as it relates to the court's screen sharing preferences, may we assume that for the first time we're sharing an exhibit to authenticate it with a witness, it's constructively outside the view of the jury, and that once it's admitted, it's published to the members of the jury?
Yes, that is correct.
Lastly, Your Honor, we'd just like to ask that if for any reason during today's trial you suddenly can't see or hear any one of us, to please feel free to just interrupt and let us know.
Thank you, counsel. The bench will do just that.
With that, plaintiff is ready to proceed.
Thank you again. And are there any other matters from defense?
None from us. We're ready to go into openings.
Okay, thank you. Opening statements. I'll hear from plaintiff's counsel.
Yes, Your Honor. They looked the other way. On March 24th of 2019, a young woman named Jessica Marks goes into a bar in LA. She's planning something pretty ordinary. Order a couple drinks, hang out with a friend, call it a night. But March 24th is anything but ordinary. She hands the bar an ID. You'll learn the bar knew that it was fake, but they looked the other way. She becomes highly intoxicated. You'll learn the bar watched it happen, but they looked the other way. She intends to drive home. You'll learn the bar was told that, but they looked the other way. On her way home from that bar, Miss Marks is in a car crash and she dies. Today we'll prove to you the defendant, Sonny's Rooftop Bar, is liable for Miss Marks's death because they looked the other way. Good morning. My name is Elizabeth Grant, and I represent the estate of Miss Marks today. Now, we're here today because of California's Dram Shop Act. Now, that says that bars can't serve someone who is obviously intoxicated, and that if a bar does, well, they're on the hook for what happens next. Today, the estate of Jessica Marks is suing Sonny's Rooftop Bar for wrongful death because they looked the other way when they had the responsibility to step in. So what exactly do we have to prove to you today? Well, there are three things. First, that Miss Marks was underage, that she was served alcohol when she was obviously intoxicated, and that was a cause of her death. Now, members of the jury, we have to prove these three things to you by what's called a preponderance of the evidence, and that just means more likely than not. And today, well, you'll learn it's undisputed that Miss Marks was a minor. You'll hear from a close friend that on the night in question, Miss Marks was clearly drunk. And then you'll hear that the cause of Miss Marks's death was a car crash. A crash 1,000 feet from the bar. You'll learn that when Miss Marks was found, her BAC was 16 times her legal limit. Members of the jury, today we will prove that Sonny's Rooftop Bar looked the other way, and when they did, it cost Miss Marks her life. And the defense? Well, today they've notified us and the court that they intend to prove Miss Marks was responsible for her own death, that she contributed to it herself. And members of the jury, when they tell you that in just a moment, we'd like you to focus on three key pieces of evidence and keep them in your mind throughout today's trial. The ID, the intoxication, and her intent to drive home, all of which the defense ignored. Members of the jury, you will learn today that Sonny's Rooftop Bar looked the other way over and over and over again, and as a result, Miss Marks isn't here today. They looked the other way, and that's why at the end of today's trial, we'll ask you to find them liable. Thank you.
Thank you, Counsel Grant. Defense.
She controlled her choices. Members of the jury, no one is going to stand here and tell you that the loss of Jessica Marks isn't a tragedy. We all feel sympathy for Miss Marks's family and the pain they've had to endure. And because Sonny's Rooftop was the last place Miss Marks was seen before she died, it would be easy to jump to conclusions, to assume that business must be responsible for her death. That this is a case about a business that looked the other way. But there are some things that Miss Grant didn't tell you. Because what the plaintiff didn't tell you is that Jessica Marks chose to start drinking long before she got to the bar that night. What the plaintiff didn't tell you is that she went to that bar planning to drink a lot more. And what the plaintiff didn't tell you is that Miss Marks deliberately chose to drive herself home that night, even after she was told it wasn't safe. And that's important because the legal issue in this case isn't whether Sunny's rooftop served someone who was underage, or even whether they should have done that. They did, and they shouldn't have. But the plaintiff is asking you to hold that business liable for Jessica Marks's death, to say that her death was their fault. But today you'll see the plaintiff won't be able to establish liability because they won't be able to prove that Sunny's rooftop did anything wrong, and because of something called comparative fault. Now, to help you see why, we're going to ask you to keep in mind 3 questions as you listen to the evidence. Why was Jessica Marks even at Sunny's that night? Why did Sunny's allow her to keep drinking? And why did the crash really happen? So let's start with that first question, because today you'll learn that Jessica Marks was in town over spring break and that she was supposed to go home the next morning. You'll hear that Jessica Marks started drinking long before she showed up at Sunny's, and that she planned on drinking a lot more once she got there. Which will bring us to that second question. Why did the bar allow Miss Marks to keep drinking? Well, today you're going to hear from that bar's owner, Mr. Sunny Maida, and he's going to give you the answer. That they had no idea how much Miss Marks had been drinking before she got into that bar, and that they didn't see any signs that she was visibly intoxicated while she was actually there. Which will bring us to that third and final question. Why did this crash really happen? Members of the jury, today you're going to hear from one of Miss Marks's closest friends. And when you do, you'll hear about a conversation they had right before the fatal crash. A conversation where that friend specifically warned Miss Marks that she was too drunk to drive, but that Jessica Marks decided to get behind the wheel anyway. Members of the jury, nothing that happens today is going to bring Jessica Marks back. That's why we'll ask you to remember that not every tragedy has a villain, and to pay close attention to who knew what about Miss Marks's condition and who didn't. Because when you do, you'll see Sunny's rooftop isn't liable, because Jessica Marks controlled her choices. That's why we'll ask you to find Sunny's rooftop bar not liable. Thank you.
Thank you, Counsel Durrani. I want to make sure my jurymen are, or give them just additional time, and then we will get started by calling our first witness. Okay, we will now hear from the plaintiff's first witness. I will ask everyone to switch to gallery view. That button is in the upper right of your screen. This will allow you to see the attorneys and the witnesses at the same time. All right, thank you, DiPolito. Judge DiPolito, you are good to go. I'm assuming everyone else is good as well. All right, we'll go ahead and get started. Please call your first witness.
Yes, Your Honor. Plaintiff calls Morgan Levin. Permission to proceed, Your Honor?
Counsel, you may proceed.
Good morning, Ms. Levin. Could you introduce yourself to the court?
Hi, my name is Morgan Levin. I'm a junior at UCLA this year.
Could you tell the jury a bit about why you're here today?
My best friend Jessica died on March 24th, 2019. She drove off the road accidentally when she was visiting me for spring break.
How did you know Miss Marks?
We'd been best friends since middle school. We had the same birthday, so we thought that was like a sign from the heavens. We were meant to be best friends. You know, we called each other, you know, twin sisters and stuff like that. I thought we'd be lifelong friends.
Miss Levin, I'd like to walk through the events on March 24th of 2019. Do you remember where you were that day?
Yeah. That night we had gone to a bar, Sonny's.
Was Miss Marks with you when you went to the bar?
Yes, yeah, we went together.
Were you both underage at the time?
Yeah, but we had fake IDs.
Would you recognize Miss Marks's fake ID if I were to show it to you in court today?
Yeah, I would.
At this time, Your Honor, co-counsel is screen sharing what's not yet in evidence as Exhibit 3.
So noted. Thank you, counsel.
Miss Levin, is this that ID?
Yeah, that was Jessica's ID. That's her in the picture.
Does this look fair and accurate to you?
Yeah.
At this time, Your Honor, plaintiff moves Exhibit 3 into evidence.
No
Counsel,
objection.
barring no objection, so admitted Exhibit 3.
Ms. Levin, you told us that both of you were underage when you went to this bar. Did the bar turn you away when you arrived?
No, I mean, we ordered probably almost immediately, and then they served us all night.
Well, I'd like to shift and talk to you about whether Miss Marks was intoxicated that night. Your Honor, at this time, co-counsel is screen sharing what's not yet in evidence as Exhibit 10. Ms. Levin, do you recognize this?
Yeah, I took the video.
Around what time did you film it?
Probably the later half of the night, probably close to 11.
And this person that we see in the center of our screen, who is that?
That's Jessica.
Now, does this video look fair and accurate to you?
Yeah, I mean, it looks like how I took it.
At this time, Your Honor, plaintiff moves Exhibit 10 into evidence.
No objection.
Barring no objections, Exhibit 10 is now admitted.
Ms. Pasha, could we play this video for the members of the jury?
Hi everyone, Morgan and I are in Hollywood. We're at a bar. It's kind of like a Philly bar, except everything is really, really expensive. $10 for a seltzer. And everyone here wants to be a model or an actress. You know, I'd like to thank the Academy. Mom and Dad, you've inspired me. Okay, well, go big or go home.
Ms. Levin, let me ask. Does Jessica Marks seem intoxicated to you in that video?
Yeah, I mean, look at her. It's kind of hard to rewatch. She looks very drunk in that video.
Objection. Relevance to this witness's personal opinion about whether Jessica Marks seemed drunk in that video?
Response, counsel.
Yes, Your Honor. Today, it's part of our claim to prove that Miss Marks was obviously intoxicated. This witness's testimony that she goes directly to that element.
May I respond, Your Honor?
You may.
Your Honor, the plaintiff has to prove that Miss Marks was obviously intoxicated to the employees that worked at Sonny's rooftop bar. Now, whether Morgan Levin a lay witness has an opinion about whether Miss Marks seemed intoxicated in that video, that doesn't make any fact in this case more or less likely. She can talk about what she observed and the drinks that she saw Miss Marks have, but her personal opinion isn't relevant.
Final response, Your Honor?
Final response, counsel.
Yes, Your Honor. The standard by which we have to prove that Miss Marks was obviously intoxicated is a reasonable person standard. The testimony this witness just gave that she appeared to be intoxicated goes to prove that standard.
I agree. So I'm going to overrule your objection. Let's proceed.
Ms. Pasha, thank you. Can we take down the exhibit? Now, ma'am, those drinks that were on the table in that video, did you and Miss Marks order them?
Yeah, we ordered all of them, I think.
Who took your order?
Sonny Mehta, that was the bar owner. He came over, introduced himself.
Who brought the drinks to your table?
He did.
Now, do you remember what you ordered?
I drank a glass of wine, a beer, and then I had one of those green tea shots. And that was it. Jessica had the rest.
By the rest, ma'am, what do you mean?
We had ordered a full bottle of red wine, and so I had one glass, and she probably had 3. I mean, the bottle was empty, and then she had a couple more beers. I don't remember her ordering a cocktail, but there was a cocktail at some point, and she took shots as well.
Now, you told us that Mr. Mehta brought all those drinks over to your table. At any point, did he cut you off?
No, not at any point.
At any point, did Mr. Mehta try to stop you or Miss Marks from leaving the bar?
No. I mean, they let us walk out without any problem.
Well, let's shift and talk about how Miss Marks intended to get home that evening. Now, did Mr. Mehta ever tell you that it wasn't safe for Miss Marks to drive home?
Kind of. I mean, he said to me, I hope this one's not driving. But he didn't tell her not to drive or take her keys or anything like that, if that's what you're asking.
When the bar owner told you he hoped that Miss Marks wasn't driving, did he take her car keys?
Objection, misstating the record. May I explain?
You may.
So, Your Honor, the witness's testimony was that Mr. Mehta said, I hope this one's not driving. But then Ms. Grant just said in her question that the bar owner said, I hope Jessica's not driving. That's a misstatement of the record, so we ask that that question be adjusted.
Sustained. Please adjust the question and move forward.
Yes, Your Honor, I'll rephrase. Ms. Levin, when the bar owner said, I hope this one's not driving, did he take Miss Marks' car keys?
No.
Did he in any way try to stop Miss Marks from leaving?
No, never.
Did Miss Marks get in her car that night?
Yes, she did.
What happened next?
We left the bar together. I tried to get her to come in the Uber with me, and she didn't. She got in her car, and my Uber was right behind her. She tried to make a left turn, but it took her like 2 minutes. She was struggling, and then she made it onto the road. And
What happened when she was on the road?
almost immediately, she drove clear across the divide of the highway, up of the ravine. It was the most horrible noise I've ever heard. The sound of the car just hitting the ground.
Miss Levin, when Miss Marks crashed, how far was she from the bar?
A 1,000 feet?
Thank you for your time today, ma'am. Your Honor, at this time, nothing further. But before opposing counsel proceeds with cross-examination, we'd like to read a portion of Exhibit 22, which is already in evidence, onto the record.
Yes, counsel, you may proceed.
Reading from that exhibit, Your Honor. Blood drawn at scene of accident contains 0.16 grams per 100 milliliter of blood, BAC. Thank you, Your Honor. Nothing further.
Thank you, counsel.
Cross-examination, Your Honor.
Please proceed.
Good morning, Ms. Levin. My name is Rahima Durrani. Can you see and hear me okay?
Yes, I can.
I'd like to start with the night that Jessica Marks died. Now, like you told us, she was in town for spring break, right?
Yeah, she had come to visit me for our freshman year spring break.
And Miss Marks was supposed to fly home the very next morning, wasn't she?
Yes, yeah, her flight was for the next day.
But even before you left for Sunny's bar that night, the two of you spent some time at Miss Marks's Airbnb, right?
Yeah, we hung out for a bit and had a glass of wine and, just caught up.
I'm showing you what's been previously marked as Exhibit 5. Ma'am, this is an Instagram post that Miss Marks posted on social media while you were at her Airbnb, isn't it?
Yeah.
It looks like a fair and accurate copy of that post.
Yes, yeah, it does.
We offer Exhibit 5.
Objections, counsel?
Yes, Your Honor. To hearsay, just to Miss Levin's statements that are inside this document.
Your Honor, we're fine constructively redacting the statement by Morgan Levin.
Okay. Then they will be constructively redacted, and I will admit Exhibit 5. Thank you, Counsel Durrani and Counsel Grant.
Now, ma'am, when Miss Marks said the start to a good night, the two of you were the only people at her apartment, right?
Yeah, it was just the two of us.
And you even heard Miss Marks say, go hard or go home. Not ready to go home, didn't you?
Yeah, she said that, we were having a glass of wine. She loved to say that phrase, go big or go home. I think she thought it was funny.
Ma'am, isn't it true that all of that happened before you even left for the bar?
Yeah, I want to be clear that we didn't drink all that wine. We probably had a glass each.
Well, ma'am, right now I'm not asking you about the wine. I'm just asking you about the timeline of that statement you heard. And that was before you even left for Sunny's rooftop, right?
Yeah, that was something Jessica said. Go big or go home.
So then let's talk about what happened once you got to the bar. Now, like you told us, Jessica Marks continued drinking at the bar that night, didn't she?
Yes.
But you were drinking that night too, weren't you, Miss Levin?
Yeah, yes, we were at a bar, we were both drinking.
I'm showing you what's been previously marked as Exhibit 17. Now, ma'am, this is a copy of your receipt from that night, isn't it?
Yeah, looks like it.
Looks the same as the last time you saw it?
Yeah, it does.
We offer Exhibit 17.
Without objection.
So admitted Exhibit 17.
Now, Miss Levin, you're the person who signed this receipt, aren't you?
Yes, that's me.
So you're the person who made a pretty basic math error in the total, right?
Yeah, I did.
Well, ma'am, you'd agree that 119 plus 20 is 139, isn't it?
Yes, I do know that.
And when you were at Sunny's rooftop, you and Miss Marks, you shared a table, didn't you?
Yes, yeah. We were obviously sitting together.
You were on a single combined tab, right?
Yes, it was my tab.
So there's no record of which of those drinks Miss Marks had and which of those drinks were yours, is there?
Oh, I just had the shot, a glass of wine, and the beer.
But ma'am, you'd agree there's no record of the fact that you had only those drinks, is there?
I guess not. I don't know what that record would be.
But you'd agree that's a yes?
Yeah.
So then I'd like to go back to that video you mentioned on direct examination. Now that video exhibit 10, you were the one who recorded it, right?
Yes.
And when you were recording that video, you didn't see any servers around your table, did you?
No, not that I can remember, no.
You certainly didn't show that video to any of the servers either, right?
No, we didn't.
So then we need to talk about the end of the night. Mr. Orr, could we get exhibits 7 and 20 on the screen? Ma'am, you've seen this map before, haven't you?
Yes, I have.
It shows the area around the bar, right?
Yeah.
And exhibit 7, that's the car that Miss Marks was driving that night, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
We offer exhibits 7 and 20.
Without objection.
Admitted exhibits 7 and 20.
Now let's focus on this map for a moment. You'd agree that the purple dot, that shows the location of Sunny's bar, doesn't it?
Yeah.
And Miss Levin, you'd agree that Miss Marks got in her car around this red X that I'm marking here, right?
Yeah, that's the parking lot.
But when the two of you were leaving that night, you didn't get into the car with Miss Marks, did you?
No, I didn't think it was safe for her to drive. I didn't want to get in the car.
Well, that's right. Isn't it true? You told Miss Marks you didn't feel safe getting in a car with her.
Yeah, I said that, and I tried to get her in the Uber with me. I'd already called one.
Ma'am, isn't it true? That entire conversation took place in the parking lot outside of the bar.
Yeah.
Thank you, Miss Levin. Nothing further.
Thank you, counsel. Any redirect?
Yes, Your Honor. Permission to proceed?
You may.
Ms. Levin, opposing counsel showed you a picture of 2 empty wine bottles from the beginning of your night on March 24th. To be clear, did you drink both of those bottles of wine?
No, we didn't have those bottles of wine that night. I think we had, a glass each. She might have had a little bit more, but no, we hadn't emptied those bottles.
Thank you. Nothing further, Your Honor. And if there's no recross examination, we'd ask that Ms. Levin be excused.
Mr.
No
Rainey?
recross, Your Honor.
You are excused, Ms. Levin.
Thank you.
Thank you for your time and service. Counsel Grant?
Yes, Your Honor. At this time, plaintiff rests our case in chief.
And I will check in with the juror judges. Okay, wonderful. Wonderful. Having heard from all of them, let's proceed.
Defense calls Sunny Mehta. Good morning.
Good morning.
Could you please introduce yourself to the members of the jury?
Yes. Hi, my name is Sunny Mehta.
Where are you from, sir?
I'm from Los Angeles. Pretty much lived there my whole life.
So how are you involved in today's case?
So I used to own a bar called Sunny's Rooftop Bar. In March, a couple years ago, Jessica Marks came into my bar, and later that evening, she died.
Then I'd like to talk about what happened that night. When did you see Miss Marks and Miss Levin come into your bar?
They came into my bar around 9 p.m.
Had you ever seen Jessica Marks before?
No, I'd never seen her before. I'd never seen her friend before either.
And when the two of them walked in, did either of them appear drunk to you?
No, not at all.
I'm showing you what's been previously marked as Exhibit 8. Do you recognize this?
Yeah, this is the rooftop to Sunny's Rooftop Bar.
Does it look like a fair and accurate depiction of that rooftop?
It does.
We offer Exhibit 8.
Without objection, Your Honor.
So noted, Exhibit 8 admitted.
Mr. Mehta, where exactly did you see Miss Marks and Miss Levin sitting on this rooftop that night?
So they were sitting in the bottom right, just the right there, the one you just circled. That's where they were sitting.
And were there any other people at the bar that night?
There were some other customers, but it definitely wasn't packed. We only had a couple employees.
Now, did you ever see any of the other people at the bar purchase any drinks for Miss Marks or Miss Levin?
No, I didn't see anything like that.
Did you ever see any drinks that Miss Marks and Miss Levin had that they didn't directly purchase themselves?
No, I don't think I saw anything like that.
Then I'd like to talk about what you personally observed about Miss Marks while she was at your bar that night.
All
Mr.
right.
Orr, could we get that chart up on the screen? Now, sir, how many times did you bring out drinks to Jessica Marks that night?
It'd have to be about 4 or 5 times that night.
And when you were at the table, did you ever hear Miss Marks slur her speech?
No, I didn't.
Did you ever have any trouble understanding what she was saying?
No, nothing like that.
Were her eyes bloodshot?
No, they look normal to me.
Did you see Miss Marks spill anything?
No, I didn't see her spill anything.
Did you ever see Miss Marks have trouble walking?
No, she seemed just fine that night.
Mr. Mehta, when you were serving her drinks, did you see anything that made you think Miss Marks was too drunk?
No, I'm a bartender. I work with people all the time. She didn't seem drunk when I interacted with her that night.
Sir, I want to make something clear for the jury. At any point that night, did you ever refuse to serve Miss Marks drinks?
No, I didn't. I didn't think I had any reason to.
Thank you, Mr. Mehta. Nothing further.
Thank you, counsel.
Cross-examination, Your Honor.
You may proceed.
Thank you. Good morning, Mr. Mehta. Can you see and hear me all right, sir?
I can. Good morning.
I'm an attorney on behalf of Miss Marks, and I'll be asking you a couple questions today, okay?
All right.
Let's start by talking about what ID Miss Marks used to get into your bar. Because you'd agree with me, when she came in, You carded her.
No, I didn't card her. I don't usually card people when they initially come in, but I card people when they try to buy alcohol.
Sorry, sir. So when she ordered
Objection.
alcohol,
Under Rule 403, to confusing the issues and substantially more prejudicial than probative. May I explain?
You may.
So, Your Honor, according to jury instruction number 11, the plaintiff does not need to prove that Sunny's Rooftop Bar actually knew that Miss Marks was underage. Rather, the issue in this case is whether they served a minor who was obviously intoxicated. Whether or not that bar knew that she was underage at the time isn't probative because there's already a jury instruction to that effect. And it's only being used to bias the jury against Sunny's Rooftop, which is inadmissible under Rule 403.
response?
Yes, please.
Yes, Your Honor. Opposing counsel has brought a comparative negligence claim in today's case and is telling the members of the jury that Miss Marks contributed to her own death. Your Honor, this testimony that the bar owner knew Miss Marks was underage goes directly to rebut opposing counsel's comparative negligence claim.
May I respond, Your Honor?
You may, counsel.
So, Your Honor, while we did bring a comparative negligence claim, which means that Jessica Marks's actions and her decisions are relevant to today's case, whether or not Sunny's Rooftop took the steps to check whether or not she was underage is not probative because the judge has already instructed the jury that they should only consider whether or not Miss Marks was a minor, which both parties have stipulated to, and not whether Sunny's Rooftop took the appropriate steps to determine whether she was. The question is whether they served her after she was obviously intoxicated, not whether they served her when she was underage.
Final response, Your Honor.
Final response, counsel.
How Miss Marks got access to alcohol on the night in question is probative and is relevant to the decisions the members of the jury need to make in today's case.
I understand both of your points, but I do tend to agree that the members of the jury will need some leadway in understanding as to how she received the alcohol. I will allow it, and let's go further. So I will allow it overruled at this time.
Yes, Your Honor. Mr. Maida, when Miss Marks tried to order alcohol, you checked her ID, yes?
Yes, I did.
Now, you were here in court earlier, right?
That's right.
You saw Miss Marks's fake ID.
Yes, I saw that ID.
At this time, Your Honor, co-counsel is displaying that ID. Mr. Maida, looking at this, how long would it take you to tell us that ID is fake?
Almost instantly.
That's right, sir. You can tell in a matter of seconds that that ID is fake.
Yeah, there's no height, there's no weight, there's no gender or eye color. It's hard to tell from the photo, but there doesn't even look like there's any holograms on this ID. It's definitely fake.
There's no hair color on that ID either, right? None of those factors.
None of those things.
But you're telling us, sir, you're sure you checked Miss Marks's ID when she ordered alcohol.
I checked her ID, but I didn't see this ID.
Sir, I understand that's what you're telling us today, but that's a yes to my question. You checked her ID.
Yes, I checked her ID, but I didn't see this ID.
After you checked her ID, you served her alcohol.
That's right.
Thank you, Ms. Pasha. We can remove this exhibit. I'd like to move now, sir, to whether or not Miss Marks was intoxicated when she was in your bar. Now, you were here when opposing counsel told us at the beginning of trial, Miss Marks controlled her choices, right?
I heard that.
Sir, it's true that you controlled your choices on the night of March 24th, too.
I'd like to believe I did, yes.
You were the one who took Miss Marks's orders.
That's right.
You were the one who brought alcohol to her table.
That's also true.
You interacted with her throughout that night, right?
Yeah, multiple times.
You were here with us when we watched that video of Miss Marks earlier, right?
That's right.
Your Honor, at this time, I'm displaying screenshots from that video. Mr. Maida, yes or no? Did the girl in that video look drunk to you?
I wouldn't say drunk, no.
So that's a no, sir. The girl in that video didn't look drunk?
I'd be concerned, but I wouldn't say she looked drunk, no.
So she wasn't drunk, but you were concerned?
In this video or that night?
Sir, you would say that if you watched this video, then you would be concerned about her.
I would be concerned, yes, but drunk, I think that's pretty far gone. And so I don't know if I could say from just watching this video whether or not she was like for sure drunk.
So that's a yes to my question, sir. You don't think she was drunk in this video, but if you'd seen it, you'd be concerned.
That's right.
Now, you know, sir, that this video was taken at around 11 p.m., yes?
That's right.
At that point, you'd been serving Miss Marks alcohol for about 2 hours.
That's true.
You told us you brought her alcohol 4 to 5 times, but you interacted with her 8 to 10 times, right?
Right. I also picked up their empty glasses and I served them some chips and guac, as you can see in the photos here.
In those 8 to 10 interactions, sir, you served Miss Marks alcohol.
Yes.
In those 8 to 10 interactions, you didn't cut her off.
I didn't see a need to.
So that's a no to my question. In those 8 to 10 interactions, you didn't cut her off.
No, I didn't.
In those 8 to 10 interactions, you never took her car keys, right?
No, I didn't.
Thank you, Miss Pasha. We can take that down. Let's move to how Miss Marks intended to drive home. Because, sir, you spoke to Miss Marks at around 11 p.m. that night, right?
Around then.
Miss Marks told you at around 11 she was planning to drive home.
That sounds about right.
Now, around 11, that's around the same time that video was filmed?
That's what it, yeah, that's what the video, that's about the time they say the video was filmed.
When Miss Marks told you she planned to drive home, you didn't take her car keys.
No.
You didn't order her an Uber.
No, I didn't. She was with a friend though.
I understand that, sir, but that's a no. You didn't order her an Uber.
No, I didn't.
You know, sir, that she drove away from your bar that night.
I do.
You know that she was in a car crash.
That's right.
Sir, you know where on the highway she crashed, true?
Yes.
It's pretty close to your bar, right?
Yeah.
Pretty close to the same bar where you checked her ID.
That's correct.
Pretty close to the same bar where you served her alcohol.
Yes.
Pretty close to the same bar where you didn't cut her off.
Yes.
Pretty close to the same bar you let her leave that night.
I didn't let her leave. I don't have control over my customers.
Sorry, sir. Pretty close to the same bar where you didn't stop her from leaving.
That's right.
Thank you. Your Honor, at this time, nothing further.
Thank you, counsel.
Redirect examination, Your Honor.
Certainly.
Mr. Maida, you were just asked about that video that was talked about earlier. Now, when you interacted with Miss Marks, how long was each interaction, would you say?
Probably about 20 to 30 seconds.
And every time that you interacted with Miss Marks, was she acting the way that she was acting in that video?
No, she never seemed like that when I interacted with her that night. I don't know. None of the times that I interacted with her, she wasn't slurring her words. She wasn't incoherent. She didn't seem off balance. None of those things.
Thank you, Mr. Maida. Nothing further.
Thank you, counsel. And thank you, Mr. Maida. Is he excused or you're excusing your witness?
Yes,
Sorry, Your Honor. If I could have a moment for recross.
Oh, certainly, counsel. I apologize.
Apologies, Your Honor. Mr. Maida, you told us you only interacted with Miss Marks on periods of about 30 seconds, right?
20 or 30 seconds.
That video we just watched, sir, It's also about 30 seconds.
I think so, yes.
Thank you. Nothing further.
Okay.
Your Honor, with that, we rest our case in chief.
Thank you, counsel. I figured I'd wait this time. So thank you, counsel. And now you are excused, Mr. Maida, Dr. Maida. Okay. And let me check in with the jurors. Are we all good to proceed? And we are good. And of course, I have to read some instructions before we begin with closing arguments. So now that we will hear your closing arguments, everyone should please switch back to speaker view. Also, since both witnesses have completed their testimony, you can complete the witness portion of your ballot. Okay, that's all the instructions. I've already done so. Speaker view is in effect. The jury is ready to proceed. So we'll go ahead and begin with Ms. Grant.
Yes, Your Honor. They looked the other way. Sonny's rooftop bar was required to turn Miss Marks away. They were required to cut her off. They were required to step in before Miss Marks ever got in her car. But Sonny's rooftop bar, they looked the other way. From the time Miss Marks walked into the bar to the time she walked out, they looked the other way, and it cost Miss Marks her life. Members of the jury, before we get into the evidence, consider why we're here. California's Dram Shop Act. It's an act that says bars are required to step in when obviously intoxicated customers pose a risk to themselves or to others. It's about safety. And when a bar doesn't comply with that act, people get hurt. We know in today's case, Miss Marks lost her life. Now, members of the jury, at the beginning of today's trial, I asked you to focus on 3 pieces of evidence: the ID, the intoxication, and Miss Marks's intent to drive. So let's walk through each of those one more time, starting with the ID. Members of the jury, remember, we didn't only learn today that this ID was fake, we learned it was a bad fake. No height, no weight, eye color, hair color. Mr. Mehta himself told you there was no hologram on it. And remember his testimony. He told you, members of the jury, he's sure he checked Miss Marks's ID, and you didn't hear any evidence today that she had another one. When Mr. Mehta looked at this ID, that should have stopped the bar from pouring a single drop of alcohol. But it didn't. And that brings us to intoxication. Members of the jury, think about the video we watched earlier in court today. The video where Miss Marks is slurring her words, where she's talking incoherently. That's someone who's obviously intoxicated. And members of the jury, we know that Mr. Marks was aware of that because he admitted to you on the stand today he spoke to Miss Marks around the same time this video was taken. Miss Marks was obviously intoxicated, and that was a factor that contributed to her death. And members of the jury, that brings us to Miss Marks's intent to leave. And because remember, when Miss Marks walked up to the bar owner at 11 p.m. that night, she told him she was intending to drive home. Members of the jury, Mr. Mehta should have done something. He should have taken her car keys, cut her off, called her an Uber, called the police, but he didn't. He looked the other way. Members of the jury, today you have to answer a number of complex legal questions, and in a moment, this case will be in your hands. You'll be asked to fill out the jury verdict form, which I'm showing you now. So let's walk through the questions that you'll have to answer, starting with the first. Now, this question is about whether or not we as the plaintiff met our burden. Whether we proved that Ms. Marks's death was caused, at least in part, by the defendant serving alcohol to an obviously intoxicated minor. Members of the jury, in answering this question, remember the ID, the intoxication, and her intent to drive. We've proven, more likely than not, that the answer to this question should be yes. And that brings us to question 2. It's a similar question about the defense's case, about whether or not they proved that Ms. Marks, at least in part, contributed to her own death. And members of the jury, let me be clear, yes. Ms. Marks used a fake ID to get alcohol. But when that bar allowed Ms. Marks inside, when that bar served her alcohol, and then when that bar overserved her, the responsibility to protect Ms. Marks fell on them. But say you disagree. Say you find that the defense met their burden. Well, that brings you to question 3. And that's about assigning a percent of liability to the bar and to Ms. Marks. Members of the jury, if you reach this question, we ask you to remember the bar's job. If the bar had done its job, Ms. Marks never gets in. If the bar had done its job, Ms. Marks never has her first drink and she never has her last. If the bar had done its job, Ms. Marks never gets behind the wheel of her car. If the bar had done its job, if they hadn't looked the other way, Ms. Marks would be alive today. Members of the jury, they looked the other way. We ask you to find them liable. Thank you.
Thank you, counsel. Closing from defense.
Your Honor, before I begin, I'd just like to note that we'll be screen sharing throughout the closing, and the judges can adjust their screen by dragging the 2 white vertical lines on the left-hand side of my video so that the screen share takes up about half the screen and my video takes up the other half.
Thank you, counsel, for that. I believe everyone has that, and thank you for that reminder. And you can begin when you're ready.
Members of the jury, there are some things that everyone in this trial can agree on. Because everyone agrees. Jessica Marks chose to start drinking long before she showed up at Sonny's. Everyone agrees. Jessica Marks chose to keep drinking, even once she was there. And everyone agrees that at the end of the night, Miss Marks chose to get behind the wheel of this car, even though her friend told her she shouldn't. But where we disagree, and what this case really comes down to, is what all of that means. The plaintiff wants you to believe that because Sonny's served some of the drinks Miss Marks had that night, that they must be responsible for her death. But as you've seen today, that just isn't true. Because Jessica Marks controlled her choices. Now, before I go any further, I want to make one thing clear. Because the plaintiff brought a wrongful death suit against Sonny's Rooftop, it was their burden to prove that Sonny's continued serving Miss Marks alcohol after she was obviously intoxicated, and that they did that, which led to her death. Now, members of the jury, if the plaintiff didn't prove that, then this case is over, and your verdict must be for the defense. But even if they did, we've still raised an affirmative defense for something called comparative fault. And that means you don't just have to take into account Sonny's Rooftop's actions or what they knew. You also have to consider Jessica Marks's actions and the things she knew that Sonny's didn't. And members of the jury, when you do that, you'll see this case is pretty simple. Because Jessica Marks controlled her choices. Now, to help you see why, we're going to go back to those same 3 questions we asked you to keep in mind as you listen to the evidence. Starting with that first question, why was Jessica Marks even at Sonny's? Because members of the jury, the plaintiff has said over and over again that Jessica Marks continued drinking throughout the night. They showed you drink after drink that Miss Marks and Miss Levin ordered during the 3-hour period that they were at the bar. But remember, Jessica Marks started drinking long before she got to the bar that night. Exhibit 5, 2 empty wine bottles. The start to a good night. Hashtag go big or go home. Members of the jury, that's important because it shows that Jessica Marks chose to drink before she even got to the bar, and that she knew things that Sonny's Rooftop didn't. And that's the start of our answer to that second question. Why did the bar allow Miss Marks to keep drinking? Because members of the jury, today you heard that after Jessica Marks got to that bar, she ordered drink after drink. But you heard today that so did Levin. Now, part of the reason the bar let them keep ordering drinks that night is because they had no idea that Miss Marks had been drinking before. For all they knew, Miss Marks was completely sober when she walked in the door. And like Mr. Maida told you, nothing about Miss Marks's behavior that night would have even told them any differently. And that makes sense, members of the jury, because Jessica Marks knew she was underage and that she wanted to keep drinking. And so regardless of how she was acting in a childish video filmed by her underage friend when there were no servers in sight, Miss Marks had every reason to act as sober as possible every time Mr. Maida came to their table. And Mr. Maida couldn't look the other way to something he could never see. Which brings us to that third and final question. Why did this crash really happen? Because no one disputes. At the end of the night, Jessica Marks chose to get behind the wheel of this car. And no one disputes. She had already left Sonny's Rooftop by the time she made that decision. And that's important too. Because Morgan Levin, the plaintiff's own witness, told you that after they were in the parking lot, outside from the bar itself, she refused to get in a car with Miss Marks. She pleaded with Miss Marks to get in the Uber with her, but Jessica Marks chose not to. Think about that. You've already been drinking when you decide to go out to a bar. You order drink after drink throughout the night. Your friend warns you you're not safe to drive, says, let's split an Uber instead. But instead of listening to her and getting a ride home, you decide to drive yourself anyway. And at the end of the day, that's what makes this case so tragic. Because Mr. Maida never told you that his business was perfect. It wasn't. Mr. Maida never tried to say that a business shouldn't look out for its customers. It should. But Jessica Marks controlled her choices. And that's why we ask you to find Sunny's Rooftop not liable. Thank you.
Thank you, counsel. Okay, yes, Ms. Grant.
Yes, Your Honor. Before beginning rebuttal, Ms. Pasha, can I get the number of questions that Ms. Maida asked the jury a moment ago? Permission to proceed, Your Honor.
You may, counsel.
Members of the jury, let's take a look at these 3 questions. Why was Ms. Marks even at Sunny's? Because they let her in. Because they took a look at her fake ID and allowed her to drink. Why did Sunny's allow her to keep drinking? Well, not because Mr. Maida thought she was okay. You saw that video, members of the jury. You know he spoke to her near then. Because he looked the other way. And why did this crash really happen? Not because Miss Marks controlled her choices, but because the bar controlled theirs. Members of the jury, they looked the other way. Find them liable. Thank you.
Thank you, counsel.